this is Tony Speaks, and this is my lovely wife, Kim. We are the founders and co-creators of the lifestyle brand and podcast, Becoming Disciplined. Every week we meet, learn from, and share best practices with highly disciplined men and women from a variety of fields and endeavors.
Follow us on our journey.
Today, we have a Renaissance man coming on our podcast. Jermaine Hughes is a public speaker, spoken word artist, author, finance geek, model, fitness enthusiast, and a podcast host. But most importantly, today, Jermaine Hughes is becoming disciplined. Jermaine, welcome to Becoming Disciplined. We are so honored to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love the introduction.
Oh, I appreciate you. Now, Jermaine, before you educate us and share your current story, I think it's good for my audience to be aware of your context, your origin story. Every good superhero has an origin story. So tell us about your origin story. Where did you grow up at? What was your family like? What was your environment like? What was the genesis of what makes Jermaine Hughes?
That's a good question. So yeah, I grew up in Oakland, California, East Oakland to be exact, and grew up in a nice, I would say, a nice neighborhood. But it was fragmented. I couldn't go around the corner because around the corner was not the same neighborhood. But I could play outside on my block. And, in hindsight, it was a really good opportunity for, Black folks to have home ownership. I look around and I was thinking that whole section was not only full of Black homeowners, but it was also a place where within East Oakland is known for not only Too Short, but what Too Short is known for the drugs. He's known for selling his CDs to drug dealers, or tapes rather, to drug dealers, and making songs about the drug dealing life. About pimping and so forth. And so crack and so forth was big when I was growing up. And so growing up around that, went to a Catholic school, fortunately, an all Black Catholic school. I'll just say that. The staff was very, very Black, very, I would say, culturally aware, but it was a Catholic school. People are like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know anything different. That's just what I knew. Miss Adams was holding it down, and we had African-American assemblies, and we all wore dashikis and everything at Catholic school. I don't know. And so, but with that being said, there was this clear understanding that there was these class differences. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I grew up around, having to catch the bus and seeing, the homelessness, seeing the drug addiction, seeing, the violence in the community. There were some events that happened at our school because there were public schools that were really close to our school, and they didn't like, that you had these kids that had these uniforms walking down the street. They were like, oh, we're going to beat up everybody, right? So it was a whole thing. Oh, and it was very obvious that there was these differences, and it also ended up becoming a big part of my heart, for Oakland, but not just for Oakland, but for people, who live in poverty and so forth, of being like, man, I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like what was happening. I didn't like that, our city was not only known for violence, but it was also a place that I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe growing up. I didn't feel like you could just go anywhere and it would be fine. You always had to really look over your shoulder. And so I've been somebody who's also gravitated towards other cities to kind of feel at home because of the violence and so forth, in Oakland in particular. But yeah, I would say definitely that seeing that environment definitely created within me a hunger to see things change and wanting to be somebody who helped facilitate change wherever I could or however I could for the people around me.
That's powerful. Now, when you were growing up, was there someone in your life that inspired you with their level of discipline? Was there like a person that person really kind of became like a standard for how you wanted to pattern yourself after?
Honestly, I wish that I loved discipline when I was younger. I really wish I did. I was somebody who, honestly, school wasn't very difficult. And, I did well in it without, a whole lot of like tutoring and assistance and things like that. And with that being said, in time, getting older and into the higher grades of grade school, I feel like I started to recognize that, there was, there were more and more, I would say, school got increasingly difficult. School definitely got increasingly difficult. And I just began to be sidetracked, honestly. At adolescence, my parents separated, I think when I was like around 13. And I started to just gravitate towards, all of the environment. The environment was, at my particular school, the girls were really just like, giving me a lot of attention. I said, all right, well, let me focus on what I need to focus on.
Right.
And I began to just totally leave school behind. And yeah, discipline wasn't something that I really gravitated towards or paid much attention to, I would say, until my late, I want to say part of it was high school. But honestly, not until my late 20s when I really began to focus a lot more. In high school, I started to do boxing, understanding that I need to figure this stuff out, right? I'm like, part of me needs to learn how to box because I know I don't know nothing about boxing. And so I began to do that. And immediately I began to experience these feelings of, Jermaine, like, you have to pick this up. And you have to catch up, because I was literally in a boxing gym where there are kids training. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, people were doing this when they were like 8 and 9 and 14. And so I was, I believe, 16 at the time. And so it was something that I really began to put a lot of energy into. And while I was only doing it for a short period of time, it was something that I was actually surprised at how much discipline I was exercising. My trainer said, you have to run every single morning. And then you come to the gym in the afternoons. And sure enough, I get up, I go and run in the neighborhood. I come back home, get dressed. I take all of my boxing stuff to the school. And, I have to make sure that my hand wraps are all wound up and everything at school, and then go after school, go ahead and hit up the gym. And not only was it exciting, but it was also, like I said, I remember having that piece of in my mind that said, man, like, you got to go hard to make up. You know what I mean? You got to go hard to make up for the time that you haven't spent doing this stuff. And I feel like that spirit has also been something that's aided me in being able to focus on the things I want to focus on.
How long did you box for?
It was probably like 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a little bit of time, got, I feel like if nothing else, I got it into my spirit. You know what I mean? Just like I to this day, if anyone's like, my wife actually likes to do some boxing and stuff. And so we're actually trying to get our son into something, whether it's boxing or jujitsu or whatever it is. We want to get him into something. But there is definitely a part of me that's like, man, we could get the bag, we could get the gloves, we could do this all day, because since I learned that back then, it's just inside me now.
Right. Now, was there any other martial art that you've tried out or experimented with, or was that the primary?
No, yeah, man. There was none of that. My dad put us into baseball, basketball, and football. My brother gravitated more towards football, and I gravitated more towards basketball. And so, I played basketball for a good number of years, and again, 7th grade, I lost my mind, everything's going in disarray. And that was one of the things that I lost. Now I'm only 5'10", so I'm pretty sure I wasn't going to make it to the NBA, but it definitely was something that I really did enjoy. And, did for a good number of years.
Now you have a lot of attributes that are listed on your social media. You have public speaker, spoken word artist, author, finance geek, model, fitness enthusiast, and podcast host. Out of all of those, if you could pick one, well, let's separate because let me just explain a little bit about myself so you can see where I'm coming from. There's one thing right now that I can get paid well doing. And there's another thing that is the vocation that I love, where I feel the most alive doing. So I want to separate those two, because sometimes you can have a passion for something and not. Like, I know people who are passionate about being a teacher and they can't make any money off of being a teacher. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I want to separate those two. Out of those two, I mean, out of all those things listed, what's the way that you put food on the table is one question, but then what's the thing that you do that makes you feel the most alive, where you feel like, oh, this is why God put me here on this earth?
In terms of what puts food on the table, it would be the public speaking. I've done a lot of facilitation type of jobs, since college, honestly. And, I don't mind being in front of a class. I don't mind teaching lessons. I don't mind breaking things down. That is something that I do enjoy doing. And as in terms of what makes me feel most alive, because part of the reason why I have those things is because all of those things bring something to me and give me something back. But I would say currently in my life, because of where I am and what's important to me, I would have to say the fitness stuff. I would have to say getting out there and not only challenging myself, but also challenging other people and encouraging other people to, be active and, and push through, whatever the mental, emotional blocks that are there, sometimes physical blocks that, don't allow them to be as, active or in shape as they want to be. So I would say those two.
Okay. Now, how long have you been public speaking? And then for my audience who's listening and they may think about wanting to hire you, what specific venues do you perform at, and what's typically the message or the thesis?
Right. Cool. So in terms of public speaking, it really starts off with the poetry. Poetry for me, I feel like as it pertains to speaking, was like the gateway. It gave me an opportunity to not only be on stage, but to be on stage and have everything memorized, have everything in my head already, and to be, in some respect, not only who I wanted to be, but because poetry and spoken word is, heavily influenced by hip hop, it allowed me to be pretty dope, and not dope in the sense of just like being good at it, but in the sense of like being cool, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, man, like, when I put together my words, I put together my lines, I'm like, man, like, that's really cool, that's really dope. And so that allowed me to feel comfortable on stage in different ways. And then as a result, in high school, there were times where people would say, hey, can you just say something before you perform? Or can you say something after you perform? Okay, when you perform your number of poems that you want to present, you can introduce them, you can explain them, whatever that may be. And from there, it just kind of just continued, because I learned to appreciate the opportunity to speak, even if I wasn't performing. It was like, I do want to say something. Can I say something? And whether it was at church, doing some preaching, whether, in Bible colleges, when they first started to let me host events. So we would do like a Christmas event and an Easter event, and they would say, man, we need somebody who's up there who has like energy and who's like funny and all this stuff. And they called me out, and I was like, okay. And sure enough, not only that they like it, but I liked it. I was like, man, like that's funny, because I've never really been up there to be funny. I've never been up there to be entertaining per se. When doing spoken word, it's oftentimes very serious topics. And so from there, after college, that's when it started to get into, well, I really want to talk to youth and young adults about the financial things, wanting to talk to them about the fitness stuff, but as it pertains to having workshops, having speaking engagements, I've been speaking about finances, about the importance of getting in finances, and learning financial literacy young. and, overcoming some of the pitfalls that, almost everybody faces if you don't have that type of environment growing up, that, you're going to make a lot of mistakes with money. So that's something that's really big on my heart.
Okay. Now, speaking about discipline for someone who's interested in performing, and just so you know, I was a spoken word artist from 2000 until around 2011, and I came out of retirement like 3 weeks ago, and I had a good time. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I was doing mostly Christian spoken word as well, and and really had a good had a good experience.
Nice.
But with that being said, what is your process for people who are listening? What is your discipline process to memorize all of those lines? How did you get all those lines in your head?
Yeah, you know what? When it comes to that, that's actually been one of the struggles that I've had after, I would say after high school, but even somewhat after college, because I'd have my seasons where I'm like, I'm in the zone and I can write and I can write and I can write. And every, depending on how much I'm writing, they'll be like, there's a gem, it's about to go down. Let me get this one down. And, but I would say between hearing about, for some reason, this is how it works for me. I hear about an opportunity. I hear somebody go, hey, Jermaine, we need you to perform, or there's going to be this thing coming up. If you want to perform, you can perform. Let me know. Here's the theme, whatever it is. And then I go, okay, cool. And if I'm excited about the opportunity, I can start writing and possibly finish something dope that I really appreciate within a couple of days. And then from then on, it's really just a matter of, just reading it. And what I started doing lately was recording it, recording the audio, and then listening to the audio again and again. There's just nothing like having to memorize something because you have to perform it right in a couple of weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so just that added level of pressure just makes me want to, make sure not only that it's what I want it to be, but it's also in my head the way I want it to be in my head, so that I don't have to, stumble when I'm up there over my words. But yeah, that's what I would say. Just taking the necessary time that I can throughout my day to just run over it some more times. And then the thing is, I don't know about you, but the nervousness has its own life, and it just kind of just jumps inside of you. And it's like, all right, listen, I'm here until Saturday or until that Friday night, and I am about to be here just chilling out, so whenever, you feel like, you're fine, I'm gonna let you got a performance in 9 days and you got to get after it. And so, that definitely motivates me a lot.
Yeah. I'll even be honest with you. I had no problems with memorization until the one time where I missed my lines in front of a couple hundred. It was actually a poetry slam. Right. I missed my lines in front of a couple hundred people. And then from then on, I was paranoid about it ever happening again. And it was it was like something that was haunting me at that time, where it could really stay with you. Because I will say this, forgetting your lines in front of a couple hundred people is one of my worst experiences in life. You know what I'm saying? So, it's not the worst. I've had family members die, which is worse than that. But without anybody dying, forgetting your lines is probably one of the worst experiences. So that's why I asked that for any young poets listening today.
I hear it.
Now, with that in mind, with the fitness enthusiasm, I hear you're a person of faith as well. And I think most people who are hardcore fans of becoming disciplined, they know that's why I started this channel. That's my biggest weakness, is my weight issue. And with that being said, we have a problem in the body of Christ, Brother Jermaine. And we have a problem where
Oh,
we have
shoot.
all these heavy people in the body of Christ, myself included. So I guess my question is this, my brother. Why is the church, Jesus says, that, he'll carry the burdens for you, but why is the church so heavy? And why do we struggle on this issue? Amen. And why do we overcome? Because I will admit to you, my brother, I am the DMX of carbohydrates. You know what I'm saying? I struggle in this area. So why do you think, what is your thoughts on why, the body of Christ is so heavy and so, challenging, because I don't know about your area, but I've been to quite a few COVID funerals, you know what I'm saying? And just to let you know, man, I always, I'm not trying to get into the vaccine debate, but I have friends who try to say, well, I ain't gonna take the vaccine because the government's gonna get you with the vaccine. And then my point to them is this: the government already got you with what he's been feeding you. You know what I'm saying? That's how the government already got us by feeding us a bunch of trash. And we have been eating, we have responsibility ourselves because we've been eating trash. But with fitness, why do you think the church struggles in this way? And for someone who's a fitness enthusiast, what do you tell people in your circle to try to get them going so that we can overcome this hurdle that is obesity within our community?
Right. As much as I want to first point to, Christian culture, I have done some mission trips. I did, went to Ethiopia back in 2011 or 12. I would say 2012. And then with the same church, I went to Mexico a couple of times. And recently, my wife and I, we traveled to Egypt. And it's definitely an American thing. I definitely feel like our culture here in particular, around the consumption period of anything, but especially around the food, it's so big here. My wife and I were actually discussing it the other day, and we're talking about how we've gotten past, needing food, so much so, right? It's like we're not worried about, making ends meet with food. It's like, oh, we just got enough food. Like, no, we have way more than enough. The question now is who makes the best food, and who and how do we experience the experience that comes with the best foods on the planet? It's really, I really feel like, we can't really separate, the church's weight issues with America's weight issues, just like we really can't separate COVID issues in America with America's weight issues. She's actually a nurse case manager at a local hospital. And she talks about how much it concerns her that the people who are dying most and are most affected are those who are obese. And that has nothing to do with, faith or whatever it is. Just like, hey, like whatever you believe, that's neither here nor there. The question is how much, are people weighing? How much are people paying? Yeah. So let me say this part, because what I want to say is it comes down to just your willingness, to focus on fitness and maybe your interest in eating better and so forth. Because when I first started working out very consistently was 2014. And it was honestly a place where I was actually becoming less involved at church. So again, went to Bible college. After Bible college, got really involved at church, helping out with the missionary team, but also helping out in whatever capacity I could. And so it just wasn't part of the culture. It wasn't like, hey, everybody, we're going to go, it's Monday through Friday, so we got to get ready for Sunday. But while getting ready for Sunday, we all are going to work out, right? Because we got to work out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we're eating. We're going to talk about how we're eating. This is like the church staff, right? And so because it wasn't like that, and I was like, honestly, I was young. I wasn't really particularly concerned about it. But the more that I distanced myself from that, the more that I began to recognize, man, like this is something that no one is going to take care of for me. It's right in the same line of, dental hygiene. Right, like you're out the house now. Like, ain't nobody about to ask you to brush and floss every single day. And I've even thought about like, man, we should have like an accountability group for that. But I feel like nobody's even gonna want to join it, right? Because it's so like, like who cares about that? Until you start getting some of these bills, right? And you start getting some of these pains in your mouth. But the reality is that so many of us don't come from places where it's just normal and it's regular, and it's so I get some of the biggest pushback that I've gotten on some of my posts on Facebook, and I do get pushback, I won't lie, is around food. I mean, as soon as you started bringing up health, you have 30,000 opinions. And for the most part, it would and could discourage a lot of people from really engaging it, because it's not just people are going to say things like, well, I'm just glad that you are even thinking about this. Everybody is like, no, you have to have the right answers. You have to have the right diet. You have to have the right program. You have to have the right this. And then I know a guy, and you should sign up for his program, and that she has a program and he has a program. To the point where it's almost like, never mind. Like, I don't even want to talk about this with y'all, because it's clearly so complex and nobody's agreeing, right? Everybody's disagreeing. You got the vegan argument, the vegetarian argument, the pescatarians, like we said, the no carb, the low carb, whatever it is. And it's this huge fight whenever you bring it up. And so, I can't harp on the people who are struggling with it as much as I would like to, because I know that once I started training folks, how deeply psychological and emotional it was, that it's not as simple as like, let's just start with some how many push-ups can you do, or like how many jumping jacks. Like, it's like, no, like it's way deeper than that. And I wish it wasn't, but it is so deep. It is so ingrained in who we are that we have to have some type of radical shift oftentimes in order to really go after it and stay consistent.
Amen. I think that's a very powerful answer you gave. And as I am, and just so for anyone who's listening, as I interview all of these people, we're almost near 52 interviews, for 1 year. As we interview all of these people on different levels of discipline, especially when it comes to diet and exercise, or really, this is about getting discipline in any part of life. I think one of the reasons why people don't become more disciplined at any particular field is everyone has a different starting point. So if I go and I have my prescription glasses and I try to give my prescription glasses to you and say, hey, they work for me, how come they don't work for you? Then that's not wisdom there. You know what I mean? Because for a certain group of people, the glasses that work for me will work for you, but there's going to be a whole bunch of people where it doesn't work for them at all. You know? So that starting point and having to do that deep work that you just spoke about is so necessary. And so when I write the book and I put all of this stuff together, that's the starting point I'm going to begin with, is to realize that, hey, this book can't be one book for everybody. It's got to be, we've got to figure out who you are and where you're coming from before we go forward. So, so I just want to thank you for sharing that. Now, you said training. How many people do you train, and how long have you been training?
Man, I actually haven't been training for a minute. I started training 2016. because when I first started working out, it was just trying to get in shape. I was actually really thin growing up. And so I was just trying to get back to being thin as I normally am. And then at church, we had a fast, and the fast was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be 30 days. And then it went to 50. Like, I don't know where the discussion went, but somebody said it. It happened. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, no meat for 50 days. And I lost maybe, and this is the thing. So yeah, I lost about 10 pounds. I did not want to lose 10 pounds because I was already thin. And so I said, man, I got to gain weight, but I can't just gain weight by eating crazily because I still want to stay in shape. So I have to figure out how to build muscle, which honestly never crossed my mind. I thought I'm a skinny guy. Skinny guys are skinny guys. There's no such thing as a skinny guy who like built muscle. And now he's like not skinny no more. That never crossed my mind. When I was at that crossroads, I began to ask around and say, what is a program? What is a method for me to actually start building muscle? And people began to throw out ideas, and I would go to the grocery store, I'd buy all the stuff, and nothing was happening. And, I get all the black beans, I get all the meat, I get all the protein, nothing was happening. And then I got a program. And when I got the program that was dedicated for building muscle, started doing that at home and on the television. And slowly but surely, these pounds started to come on. And I said, oh my gosh. And then everybody else had to go, oh my gosh, like what's happening? And so when that began to happen, I started going, well, if anybody needs help, let me begin to just help you out and let you know like what I'm knowing and what I'm learning. I ended up getting a certificate with NAS, I think it's NASM. Started getting a certificate with them, started working at 24 Hour Fitness. And everything was going fine. I was loving it, working at 24, kind of had my own clients on the side if I had some time. And then I got depressed. Because there was a breakup that I had 2017. And so I had to, at that point, it was so hard to work out at that point. It was so hard to go to the gym. And I just didn't have it in me to keep going the way that I was going. And so that's when I stopped working at 24 Hour Fitness. It's taken a good amount of time to get through that emotional block. And I honestly didn't know what exactly to do. That's the first time that's ever happened where I was feeling that way and I had lost so much momentum. But honestly, I'm in a place right now, mentally, emotionally, where I feel like I can go back to training. But I would just have to go back into, getting recertified and things like that.
Okay. Now, we said a breakup was like a family breakup, or was it what?
No, yeah, just, I was dating someone and, there was a disagreement and, I'm like, you know what, it's fine. It's whatever. And the next day it hit me like, no, that's not what you meant. You need to go fix that. And, but she was like, no, like, I'm not trying to hear it. We're good. I'm cool. And I don't know how. There's a part of me that still doesn't understand why. But all I could think is at times that the reason why it hurt so bad was possibly because it was possibly other things that I haven't processed before, other things that I haven't really given time and energy to. And maybe that was the thing that opened that up inside of me, maybe. Because I'm talking about it hurt. And I'm talking about I was feeling it. I was feeling it for a number of months. So that's what had initially really thrown me off of just on that path of just being in shape, staying focused, staying consistent, and disciplined.
Amen. Well, you're married now though, right? So
yeah.
Don't call it a comeback.
Right.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. Amen.
Right.
Now, when you speak with your fitness journey, I saw on one of your pictures that you ran was it the Spartan Race?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
so tell us about that process and
Oh
tell us how
man.
that went, and tell us how long you had to train for that, and tell us about.
Right,
I
right.
know you got a good story to tell about that.
Right, right. So yeah, when I first started getting in shape, building the muscle, that whole thing, my mind started going, okay, what can I do? And just, what are some of the goals that I want to set for myself? And I began to see those types of advertisements. The advertisements were about the Spartan Race or Tough Mudder and stuff like that. And I said, man, this Spartan thing looks really fun. But who's gonna even go with me, right? Like this isn't something that, it's like all these Black people, right? Like everybody is from Oakland and coming through, and I'm like, let's go. So I'm like, man, like, who's gonna actually come? And so I remember bringing it up on Facebook, and of course, like getting a bunch of crickets, and not being super encouraged about it, but still wanting to do it. And then I was actually out with a group. We were doing a hike one time, and I came down the hill, coming down the hill, and I hurt my leg, my knee, playing around. And I tell you, that hurt my knee so bad to where when I would run anything, I try to run just a lake, try to, hike again, anything above 2 miles, my knee would just start hurting. And to the point where I would have to stop, turn around, go back to the car. So I really had given up on that. I was like, I'm not going to do the Spartan Race. I'm probably not going to be hiking. I'm not going to be running, whatever. So when I was building muscle, it wasn't big on cardio anyways. So I just continued to, work out and do my best to keep building muscle. And this time around, my wife and I, there were two factors. One, it was the pandemic, and more weight is coming on than I want to have happen. And then I'm not, we were living at this little apartment. I had no equipment. I actually ended up signing up for the Beachbody app again, but I hardly had any room to do anything. So it was like I was hardly making any progress. We moved to my dad's duplex, and when I did that, I had all this room in the living room, and so I began to work out again. And her and I had this conflict in the conflict, we had to end up discussing, like, I need to have more freedom around my time and my diet. Now, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's important to mention because there was a point in our relationship, and I probably am speaking to other married couples, where they say, the wife cooks and the husband eats the food that the wife cooks. And whatever she's cooking, you kind of working with that. And that's just what it is. So I get it. You want to be all in shape, but y'all got to agree about this whole food situation. And we had some discussions, and I said, what I need to do, I need to have control over my diet, because I have to do what I have to do to be in the shape that I want to be in. And so after doing that and having more control over my time, working out more consistently and more regularly, started to also reach out to a local hiking group that I actually had met a long time ago, but we got connected, and the hiking group is full of all these folks. Now, the hiking group is, I would say folks are, early 30s, late 20s to late 50s, mid 60s, early 70s. And I'm talking about some of the oldest folks are burning everybody. I'm talking about, you would never imagine, you would never guess. Every time I'm, not now, but in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, okay, she's ahead of me, but she's just gonna be ahead of me for so long. And I'm talking about that lead would just keep growing. And I'm like, what is she doing? Like, what is going on? How is he going so fast? Like, I'm sure he's hurting. I'm sure something's wrong with some joints in there. He can't possibly be doing that. And nonetheless, they be killing it. And I'm like, what is going on? But it was a space, as you can imagine, where you had folks who were also like, oh yeah, I've done a triathlon before. I've done marathons. I've done Spartan races. I've done, I know friends that have also done Spartan races. So it was just like, wait a minute, can we can we go back to that? Because, you know, you were really feeling the Spartan Race 2015, but can we get back to that? Because you know, your knee, I don't know, but it feels like your knee is feeling better. It feels like you're understanding your body a little bit more. I think you can make it happen. And so I just bring it up. And I said, you know, who's done it? You know, when's the next one's coming up? And sure enough, there was one happening here in California, Northern California, maybe like a couple hours away from me. And I said, let me go for it. So there's one in August and there's one in December. And I'm like, oh yeah, I could be ready by December. And everybody's like, if you don't go to that one in August, like you do not need to wait, you know, 6 more months, you know, to go ahead and be ready for this. And I said, all right. So I did sign up for it. And about a week before, the nervousness kicked in because it began to go, so are you actually ready though? There is a place, and I don't know if you ever heard of them, but there are different Spartan groups where they have like a facility, or they'll have a space where there's a trainer and so forth, and they'll just like give people similar exercises in obstacles. And so there was a place here called Mission Peak Spartans, and I went to that a couple of times before I went to my race, and they had a whole little race set up to like give us like a certain simulation, and it was difficult and it was hard, and we're rolling on the ground and we're hopping over these walls. We got to flip the tires, we got to do the rings, we got to do the monkey bars, all this stuff. And I was like, I got through it, so I'm glad about that. So I'm wondering, how it's actually going to be when I get there. And it was a sprint. And so the sprint is only about 3.5 to 4 miles, but it's hilly. They don't just like have it like on like a beach, right? It's always like in the mountains, and so you're doing all this stuff. And while it was difficult, I tell people it was easier than I thought it was going to be, and then it was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, because the amount of obstacles that I got through, I was super proud of myself, but at the same time, I was also taken aback by the ones that I couldn't do because I've done them before, mm-hmm. right? Like it was like, oh, I did this one in Mission Peak Spartans, and I'm like, why can't I do it? And the next one, I had to do the rings, and I fell on the rings. I'm like, why am I falling on the rings? I could do the rings, but the combination of working out. I'm sorry, you're running and jogging. You're hiking sometimes because you've spent all your energy. So now you're having to climb up hills and you don't have no, speed at all. You're just really just walking. And then you're having to do these different obstacles. It's just taking all your energy, right? Whatever you're gaining back, you just spent it all on that next obstacle. And you got to keep running, and you got to go up that hill now. And so it was a lot. But I loved not only the experience and being able to get through things, but also all of the fears, all of the mental and emotional blocks that you break through in an effort just to complete the obstacles. When you're working out, it's pretty much you work out until you're tired and then you get back to it. But with the Spartan races or any obstacle course races, you're having to check all these mental and emotional red flags that are coming up. And it's like, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You're going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to slip. You're going to do this. And you're having to go, but I have to do it. So I'm about to go try. And you just keep surprising yourself. You just keep going, oh, snap, like I didn't know, or, clearly that was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but I'm so encouraged to do more now. And it's probably, I would even venture to say it surpasses the fitness stuff. It makes you feel like, man, like whatever you're afraid of, you might as well try it because you never know. Like you will surprise yourself sometimes on these courses. And so, yeah, at the end of it, I was definitely exhausted. I definitely didn't come prepared with a whole other outfit. And, I didn't get all clean. I drove home. Everything was wet because I didn't know we actually were going to go underwater, but we did, but I was, again, super proud of myself. And I definitely look forward to, doing not only, you know, a couple more, whatever, but really getting more connected with community that, you know, does those pretty regularly. You know, I definitely love the, that all the emotions that come along with putting yourself through that experience.
That is powerful. You know, just a golden nugget for our audience. It sounds like you got yourself into a group of people that group of people help change and help establish a mindset. And
Absolutely.
And I think that's important. That is important. Now, question about the Spartan, and I guess our audience, we can look it up ourselves, but do you remember, like, for the people who would come in first, second, or third, what kind of prizes do they give, or is it just a trophy, or what
You
happens?
know, that's a good question. So from my understanding, first, I wasn't even understanding that it was as competitive as it was in terms of times and what I also want to say, the number of races that people do. When I first started to look around and find people that were doing races, people literally are traveling across the country and around the world to do these different races themselves. Like, my mind goes, oh, so you did one that's in your neighborhood, in your state, you know, in a couple cities away from you. But there are people who are like, who's going to Atlanta this week, and who's going to Carolina, and then who's going to go to, you know, California to do that one. And people are like, yeah, I'm doing all three of those, and then I'm going to go to do the Hawaii one. And you know, and sometimes people are doing 2 races in a day, 2 races in a weekend, you know what I mean? 4 races in a weekend. Wow. I mean, exactly. Like, I'm like, wait, are you serious? So in terms of rewards, there are people who win. I think that's its own reward, but there's a Spartan championship. In the Spartan championships, the people who have been on the podiums and who have gotten like enough, I want to say it's maybe the number of races and also, you know, the qualifying races that you've done that allow you to qualify for those, for this particular race. This year, it's actually in Dubai, and I so want to go because is it Dubai? Yeah, I think it's Dubai, and I'm like, oh, that's so clean. Like, who does that? Yeah, so you qualify, and then there are cash prizes for that part. In particular. But I don't know if there's cash prizes like throughout the year, but definitely for the championship, you know, people are competing for, I would at least just say tens of thousands of dollars at the end of that. Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Now, you had mentioned earlier that you went to Bible college. What Bible college did you go to, and how did you pick that one?
So that's interesting. So I went to a Bible college called the School of Urban Missions. It's here in Oakland. It was here. They moved one to Sacramento, but I know they have like their home bases in like New Orleans, Louisiana. And really, I was going to church, and I was feeling called to be one of the leaders, and I started to do that. I started to, you know, begin to talk with my pastor, and he began to say, okay, like, we're going to like give you an opportunity to speak and this whole thing. And I'm like, okay. But after it happened, it was like, all right, cool. So now that you're like one of the leaders, then you just get to, you know, come to the meetings, you got to sit in the front of the church. This is a Baptist church. You got to sit in the front, you got to sit in the pulpit, you got to have the suit, you got to have this, you got to pray, and I'm like, okay, like I could do all this, but like, where's the like education part, right? Like, because like, don't get me wrong, I be reading and I be coming to church on a regular basis, but don't I have to learn some other stuff? Like, don't I have to like get down into this stuff? And they had some classes, but it wasn't like, okay, but you have to go to college. And so I was like, but I feel like I do, so I'll be back. And so I began to look around. There were a couple here in Oakland. One is Patton University, and one was the School of Urban Missions. And I liked the School of Urban Missions because it was more, speaking again back to my interest in being connected to helping people who are in poverty and things like that. And in the neighborhoods, it was something that was more outreach focused. You know, it wasn't this like, okay, we go to school, we do our classes, we're done with our classes, we get our degree. It was more like you go to school, you do your classes, you do all these outreaches, like I said, we did some for Christmas, some for Easter. I ended up being part of a youth ministry that we created at the Bible College with the students that were there and all the people in the neighborhood. And in the school is actually in one of the more dangerous neighborhoods by itself already. And so that was a way that we were not only making an impact, but it was something that drew me in, because I was like, I don't want to just be, reading and, studying when I go to Bible college. Like, I want to actually be helping out where I'm going. And so that was the biggest draw for me personally.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, where do you fellowship at now?
It's called The Way Christian Center. It's in Berkeley, California.
Okay. Well, you sound like you have been all around the Christian kingdom. You went to Catholic school, then you went to Urban Missions, Baptist Church, and now the Way is what is that a denomination or is that a non-denomination?
I want to say it's my pastor would say things like it's like Baptist Costal. I feel like it's non-denominational. Like, again, we're not part of Kojic or the Assemblies of God or anything like that. So I wouldn't say there is one particular, but there are the influences from the different denominations in there. So, but yeah, so probably non-denominational.
Hey, I'm your brother in that aspect. I'm Penny Baptist myself, so I went and I got saved in a Pentecostal church. I got trained as a Baptist reverend in a Baptist church, and now I pastor a non-denominational church. So I'm right there with you, brother. I didn't have the nun hitting me in the hands with the ruler, like, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have that experience, but
I never got hit with it by any nuns. There were nuns on the campus. There were no, but I also wasn't that kid either. So I wasn't in trouble a lot. But yeah, it was, I have heard of that. And I'm like, I don't know how y'all did at y'all school. That is not how they did it at our school. So yeah.
Well, I didn't get hit with a nun, but I got hit. I'm from North Carolina and I'm 48 years old. So in Clifton Elementary, I had a black assistant principal, and he had his name was Mr. Mack, and he walked around with a paddle in his back pocket.
Right.
And the teacher put me in the hallway, and Mr. Mack was walking down the hallway. He didn't even have a conversation with me about it. No, he just did a drive-by. It was like a drive-by, and it's like he just went bam, 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 bam. And the teacher was like, "Well, wait a minute, I didn't mean for but it was too late then.
It was too late.
Yeah. But that's what happens when you're growing up undisciplined. Amen. I was undisciplined. Right. And I got disciplined well. Hey, well, we got some generic questions that we ask of all our guests. What book beside the Bible do you recommend that's helped you on your path?
Oh, that's a good one. The first thing that comes to my mind, and it's kind of like a default but I'll just say it is The Secrets to Success by Eric Thomas. That's one of the first books that I read when I first started to get into personal development at all, was through his company and his ministry. And so I started to follow him. And that definitely opened my eyes to just the power that we have if we become increasingly disciplined, the ability for us to, overcome a number of obstacles, setbacks that we've had in our lives, if we manage to develop the discipline in our lives. So I would definitely throw that in there. But I would also just say that because of what he was talking about and other people in the personal development world were talking about, I was just picking up books left and right. Honestly, I have Audible, and my Audible is just like full of books, full of self-help books, full of personal development books, things that are challenging our mentalities, our mindsets, our feelings about discipline and about sacrifice, whatever it is. And so I listen to, whether it's those books or speakers or authors, all the time. Yeah, so that's a big thing for me.
That's awesome. Eric Thomas is a big influence in my life as well. Also, you know what? Not just Eric. Slowly but surely, like when Eric retires, CJ is like a big influence in my life as well. He doesn't know me or anything, but his right hand man, brother Quinny, he's pretty powerful on that podcast as well. Now, at Becoming Disciplined, we examine discipline or organization in the following areas: spirituality, mental discipline, physical discipline, emotional intelligence, financial discipline, time management, and home and data organization. Now, keep this in mind. I always repeat this for all our guests, so you don't have to have all that memorized right there. All right, but I want you, as I repeat it 2 more times, I want you to think about your strong point and then your weak point, and then if you have a weak point, do you have a plan in 2022 of how you want to address that weak point? Okay. So at Becoming Disciplined, we examine discipline or organization in the following areas: spirituality, mental discipline, physical discipline, emotional intelligence, financial discipline, time management, and home and data organization. What's the strong point? What's the weak point? And what's the plan?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is in your time zone. At least on my time, it's after church, and I don't know about you, sometimes after church I'm just lacking energy. Courtney.
Yes?
Can you get me a one of them vitamins that your mama takes?
Here you go, Daddy.
Let me try one of these. Tastes pretty good.
My God, Kim! What do you have in there? It's made with vitamins B9 and B12. It's great for my overall health. It's made with pectin, a unique fiber in fruit peels. It's simple and delicious. Kim, did you know that more people search apple cider vinegar in the U.S. than tea? Google has 15,000 people searching that word every day in the U.S. alone.
Kim, how can more people get this gummy?
If you want to support the podcast, or if you're looking to improve your health, you can order these gummies at https://go.goli.com/becoming disciplined. Don't forget to use our promo code Becoming Disciplined.
So what came to mind, I think what I definitely would say is the spiritual aspect, because I do feel like there's a difference between, and I honestly may be mistaken. I feel like there's a difference between, our souls and our spirits. And I feel like the mental part, I feel like for me has been something that I have worked on and I am currently working on. I feel like the marriage definitely aids us in helping us understand how important and intentional we have to be about minding, our minds and how we're doing and what we're thinking and, checking in with yourself and things like that. But I would say that, spiritually, in terms of meditation, also in terms of prayer, it's been something that's been on my mind recently, honestly. And so I'm not sure if I have a plan for that area per se, but I would definitely say that financially is where I've been, man, it's hard between finances and fitness. That's why I'm kind of doing this thing. But I would say finances is one of those areas where I've been like on my grind. And so we just moved into a house, just bought a house. And so that's part of the the product of being focused and disciplined with the finances.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now the undeveloped area, which one of those?
Yeah, I would say the spiritual.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't know if that was your undeveloped area or if that was your strong area. I'm sorry, my brother.
Okay, it's all good.
Now, we have reached a point in the podcast where we want to hear about what you have going on right now, whether it's a church event or whether it's your web link so that we can connect with you so we can get your awesome spoken word in person, or whether it's any product that you have or anything that you've got going on. We want to hear about it. And then on top of that, whatever you share, I'm going to put it at the end of this podcast so that people can go and connect with it as well.
Okay, cool. So one thing I did back at I want to say maybe March or April, is I recorded a video, an online class for personal finances around budgeting, in particular around budgeting for yearly, I want to say annual fees, annual events, So in budgeting, what you can do is a thing where you budget right now at this point where you're at, given how many paychecks, how many months are in between now and your goal date, to start saving per paycheck. And so I created a video about that, about not only how that works, how that has worked for me and my family, but how you can also do that for yourself. And so I did create that, and it is on my Instagram page, and it's through Gumroad, but it's called the Woke Not Broke online course. And so in there, again, it's all about personal finances for all of you out there, married or single, but you need a plan for your finances, a way to begin to organize how you spend your money on a regular basis, such that you can have what you want to have when you need to have it, when it's time to go and shop for Christmas, or when it's time to go ahead and spend that money for that birthday that you've been saving up for. It's there versus it's here and it's upon you and you haven't saved it all. So this whole paycheck is dedicated to that event. If you begin to take care of that at whatever point of the year it is, you can begin to save up for that slowly but surely. So that's the product that I have out there. And in terms of just what I have going on, I mean, apart from the move, I definitely know that I'm trying to, again, marry, and it's actually been a struggle about how to find out how to brand that the best, but marrying the finances and the fitness, trying maybe to create maybe a challenge in the next couple of weeks or a month or so for people to engage both areas at once, because I've seen a lot of the discipline that I've been able to implement in my life in both of these areas. There have been a number of results as a result of that. And so it's something that I really want to be able to package for people to experience, the benefits of both discipline in both areas. So I feel like that's something that people can be on the lookout for.
That is awesome. Now, how do we get a hold of you, Jermaine? If we want to have you speak at our church or speak at our conference, how do we get a hold of you?
Awesome. So one, I would say my email at this point in time is jermaine1632@gmail.com. Of course, I'm on Facebook. My page on Facebook is actually entitled "It's Bigger Than Me." And it's like Jermaine Hughes, It's Bigger Than Me. And so that's how you can find me on Facebook. And then on Instagram, my business account is the Financial Fitness Guy. And that's where you can find me on there. But yeah, those are the ways that people can get in touch with me.
Okay. Well, Jermaine Hughes, we can't thank you enough for coming on. You didn't have to do this. You didn't need to do this. We truly appreciate it. You have the last word. Do you have any closing thoughts for our audience? And also, it's always good to know your audience. Our audience are 30 to 55-year-olds. I lovingly call them the Get Better Club. And they're people who are trying to become better versions of themselves. Probably 60% of them are Christian, but we have people from other faiths and other groups that listen in across all the platforms. So we wanted to just open this up to you. What closing thoughts do you have for us, Jermaine? Thank you for coming on.
I would say discipline, almost like those quotes that I've heard in church, where it says, a vision isn't taught, it's caught. I feel like when you're fighting for discipline, it's definitely difficult and it's discouraging. I definitely have been there. But once you find the opening, and I don't know how the openings happen, I don't know when they come, but when you find the opening, you find the interest, you find the passion, you find the willingness to go after what it is you're trying to go after. It definitely is life-changing, life-altering. And so I definitely want to encourage you all, if you're in whatever area that you're struggling with discipline in, to continually keep your eye open to trying to get that thing going, right? Whether it's the fitness, whether it's the finances, whether it's the business, the mental health, whatever it may be, the spiritual stuff, continue to press towards it. And when that thing opens up for you, you can definitely see yourself accomplishing way more than you plan to accomplish, and way more than you thought that you could, and that in itself continues to expand your horizons by allowing you to realize that you are way more powerful, way more capable than you thought that you ever could be. So definitely keep going at it. Keep getting after it.
That's powerful, my brother. That is so powerful. If you enjoyed Jermaine Hughes as much as we did, you can check him out on Instagram at The Financial Fitness Guy. Or you can also check out his Facebook page, Jermaine Hughes, It's Bigger Than Me.